Chris here. So I've got a new laptop that has been sent out to me, only arrived yesterday from Chuwi, and it is a sample loan unit here of their new Aerobook Pro. Now the naming may be a little bit confusing because the Aerobook Pro was originally their 15.6-inch 4K model, but they decided to call it the Aerobook Plus. So like the original Aerobook model, this has a 13.3-inch screen, it's 1080p IPS, covered with glass. I believe it's the exact same panel they used in that first model, which is not a bad thing because that's actually an okay screen. Backlit keyboard, mostly metal build to it, and it does come with Windows 10 Home, 8 GB of RAM, and the big change of course is the CPU, which should have been in the original model, and that is the Core M3 8100Y with a maximum turbo of 3.4 GHz and 4 threads. So the performance on this for your general light computing should actually be pretty good. So in this video, I'm going to take a look initially at just what we get in the box, the design, the build, quick peek at the screen, the keyboard, and first impressions before my full and final review, which I will follow up probably a week or two later after checking this out in depth. So Chuwi's typical brown box, as I always mention, no frills packaging, but it does do the job here. So when I go and just pull this out, we've first got right here a box that contains our accessories. So this is where you will find the charger, which is 12 volts, 2 amps with this one. So just get this out. And I should have an EU plug. So there we go, EU plug. And here is our charger. So this one is, yes, 12 volts, 2 amps. You should be able to see there now. And then well packaged up in this sleeve, we've got our laptop. So that's the padding there, that grey that's all around it, which is good to see. First run you through the design of it. So this is just 15 millimeters thick. It's about 15.5 or so. Chuwi logo here on the top of it. This is all made out of an alloy. So pressing down here hard, very little flex there. And just open this up to give you a glimpse of that keyboard. Now I'm going to try and open it with just one hand. And it looks like it's just going to work. So there's our backlit keyboard. So by default, when you first power it on, it doesn't come on at all. So you need to tap F5. That's the first level of backlight keyboard that we have, backlighting. And that's the second there. So it's quite evenly distributed. Maybe some areas here are a little bit patchy, but what I do like about it is that when you look at it at certain angles, you're not getting all that light leakage underneath the keyboard coming through. This touchpad as well is nice and large, good size. So this is exactly the same as the original Aerobook model that I reviewed. In terms of the keyboard, exactly the same to me, and the key travel does feel good. But more, of course, on this later on in the full review after using it for a while. So for ports on the left here, we do have a USB 3, DC in for charging, status LED, a mini HDMI 1.4A out. So this is 4K at 30 Hz max. However, the Type-C port does support video out. This is USB 3.1 spec with power delivery support, which is great. This is just like their previous model there too. Now, the thickness of it, where I measured was right here, and that's where I got 15.5 or so millimeters. And that's not bad. The rubber feet only stick out an additional about 1.5 millimeters there. So it's very slim. Now look at this build too. They've actually rounded this off a little more than the original model, which was a little bit sharper. They didn't have such curvature to it there. And the lid fits down nice and flush. It doesn't raise up a little bit like some laptops I reviewed, these cheaper ones. It could be up a little tiny little fraction. And that's irritating. There's magnets that keep this lid here in place as well. Now then on the other side, which is the right hand side, we've got a MicroSD card reader. This is just a USB 2 spec, and then our 3.5mm headphone jack with mic support and another USB 3 port. So when you first power it on, you get these setup languages. So we've got English, German, Spanish, French, Italian, Chinese, Korean, and the palm rest on this one, just like the original model, that this is plastic here. Now that's probably because of two reasons. One, to keep the weight down, the other just to stop any electricity coming through this. So sometimes you get like a micro shock off the ones that have metal, at least that I've been using. And that's not a good thing. We don't want that, of course. Now the touchpad is nice and large, and this color is a slightly darker shade of gray than the original, I believe, which it does look actually pretty good. Now the bezels, you can see them around here, aren't particularly small here, but they're not too bad. At least the left and right bezels. The bottom one is quite large. We've got some status LEDs here. This is your typical caps lock, number lock, and scroll up, or no, touchpad disable, I think it is with this one. And yes, the screen is very reflective. Now this is the furthest it will go back that I have it pushed back right here, which is not a lot. I'll just show you that side on. You can see is not much there. So for those that like to push a screen right back flat, if they're using it on their lap, then you're just out of luck with this particular model right here, of course. So we've got the operating system. It starts with these different languages. So they've already got pre-installed language packs there. We've got English, German, Spanish, French, Italian, Chinese, Korean, and I believe also Russian is in here too. Now the gestures just didn't work because I'm not set up. Yeah, Russian is there too. So we do have Windows 10 on board with this one, and it is the Home Edition. And memory-wise, okay, 8 gigabytes, but I just seen that it's 1600 megahertz, so it's not the highest that the Core M3 8100 supports, which is actually 1866. So that would have been ideal. And to top it off, it is only single channel here. Now you may possibly see a little bit of flicker coming through. I've been trying to find that sweet spot without having it too bright and not show flicker on camera, but this is the best I can get at the moment. So probably with a full review, I'll do a screen capture so we don't have any flicker. But in person, I'm not seeing any pulse width modulation flicker from it. It's just here in camera, on camera that is, that this is happening. Now, if I move over to our network adapter, another bit of a surprise here too. It does have the dual band wireless AC 3165, whereas all their material points towards them having the 7000 series of wireless cards, which is, yes, last gen, but twice as fast as this particular wireless card. And why it's here, it's probably because I've got basically a prototype engineering sample here, and it's not a final version, but I will double check with Chuwi before the final review to ask them, are they going to actually be using that one they did advertise, or are we going to have the Intel Wireless AC 3165? So SSD speed, you can see right here, this is a NETAC drive, so the same they had in the Aerobook Plus that I reviewed, not particularly fast. I mean, the 256 gigabytes should actually be a little bit faster on the writes there, and I don't think it supports NVMe drives the slot either. This is not the what is it, the M key that we need. I think this one is just SATA that you can put in this one, which is a little bit of a shame there. And finally, Geekbench 5, I did run this as well. So this score is, yeah, it is low end, but for your light office work, this is still going to be quite quick, and it's much quicker than the Core M3, the 6Y30 that we had in the original Aerobook. So it is actually a big step up in performance, even though it might not seem so with this low-end score. So I'll give you a quick audio sample. So where is actually the sound coming out for these speakers? So just like the original Aerobook, that it's actually coming out just above the keyboard right here. So they're not downward firing. That's why there's no grill on the bottom. It's just out here, that gap that the sound will transmit and come out through from. So it doesn't sound as good, sadly, as the Aerobook Plus. Now, the Aerobook Plus actually has some fairly decent speakers in it, and these ones are very average, as you'll hear from this sample. So far I do like what I'm seeing here with the Aerobook Pro. Now, I think the Aerobook, the original model, should have had this chip in it. Now, battery life is going to be the biggest concern there. I need more time to test that out, and I think it's looking about 4.5, 5 hours at about 50% brightness, connected to wireless, of course. So just during your general kind of light use that this thing is really aimed at. So spreadsheets, docs, Chrome tabs, internet browsing, that sort of thing is what this is going to be good at. I'll cover that performance in the full detailed in-depth review, which will be about a week or two or so away. This screen, it's not a bad screen, but I need to measure it, of course. I'll check out the sRGB values. Adobe RGB will again be in the full review. Keyboard so far is good. I like the backlight on it. So the backlighting on this one is quite evenly distributed. It looks good. And looking at it at certain angles, from like here and downwards, you're not getting horrible like bleed coming through the bottom of the keyboard that can bother. It can be quite bothersome on some laptops, but not here with this one. Now the fully laminated screen, just want to point that out too, means that there is no real flex with this. It's possible that, of course, if you drop it, you can then crack the screen. And the glossy display does give us that improved color gamut. It helps versus, say, the matte ones. But if you're worried about reflection, just stick one of those anti-glare protectors on this particular one. So power delivery to support on here for charging is great to see. It's going to take about 2.5 hours to charge it. I think it's a little bit slower than using the plug for some reason. It's just probably they're limited a little bit in the power delivery system, the charging through that port that you can get. Great to see that we do have the 4K output from that as well. So overall, there are the typical weaknesses of the Chinese laptops I review. The webcam is average. I mean, it's not brilliant at all. The speakers, again, not really great. And then that battery life thing is going to be a bit of a concern there. But good to see unlocked BIOS, so we'll be able to tweak an undervolt, and power limits as well could be adjusted if, of course, thermals permit. That is the big one there, because there's no point pushing up a higher power limit by even 2 watts, say go from 15 or 10 up to 15 or 18 or something, if it's going to be thermal throttling. You're gaining nothing and you'll be reducing the lifespan then of the components. But I'll check that out again in the full review. So hope to see you back then, and thank you so much for watching this unboxing, first hands-on, first impression of the Aerobook Pro here from Chuwi.